Hello and welcome to Seddon and Laceys Comic Stash. We are back and we are with the highly anticipated by us, at least anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
Batman Killing Time by soon quickly becoming one of my favourite writers, Mr. Tom King.
Well, when you said highly anticipated, I mean that's the combo for this here, isn't it? It's like someone who is one of my favourite creators, and someone that I've been kind of pushing on you like a very eager drug dealer,
Yeah,
and Batman, like a character that we love to follow. So, and a character that Tom King has touched quite a lot over the recent years, but a limited series, so a standalone series. So yes, when I think it's fair to kind of say, 'cause I think we did it on a reading corner. We both read issue 1 at release, didn't we? And we both
yeah,
kind of went, love this. We're coming back to this. So yeah, highly anticipated. And even if we cheat a little bit and say we read issue 1 very, very early on, even more anticipated after reading that.
yeah. So I don't know what you did with it, but I read the first one, then hadn't touched the rest until I got the whole lot.
Exactly the same. The first one was I like reading my comics in lumps now. Anyway, I like to get the whole story, a trade's worth in
Yeah,
comic parlance. But I was so tempted, or I was too much like a kid in the sweetie shop. I did read that first one, but as soon as I loved it, I was like, "That's it, not touching it again." And very much, even though that's my trend of doing things anyway, certainly with Tom King stuff, because they're generally maxi series or limited series, I kind of go, right, I want to read it as one job lot. I don't want to try and do this monthly.
yeah. So before we go into Killing Time, I hear something coming. I hear a jingle. Is it for a
a,
corner?
a non-copyrighted jingle whatsoever. We haven't got a single copyright strike on it yet, and long may that continue. Yes,
We're going to our reading corners.
we blooming are. Who goes first, Chris? You or I?
I,
Who
I
wants
have
to talk
three
about their? Well, you
for
go.
my dirty corner, because we'll break the fourth wall slightly here. We haven't done one of these for a little while.
No, it has. It's been life got in the way, didn't it? So recording has been on hold for a while.
So
Bloody life.
fucking life. So I do have an array of stuff for the reading corners by breaking it into to throw them in through the upcoming recordings. So the first one was Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, which was a fucking banging retelling of the amazing Hunter S. Thompson book and also stunningly amazing film. Um, this story really fits well as a comic book.
I
You
was gonna
look
say
like you're
dependent. Well, I was gonna say dependent on like who the artist is as well. As you say, like the book is a book, Kel Surprise, but it's a very I was gonna say graphic. Graphic makes it sound like it's kind of violent day, but what I mean is it's very descriptive, isn't it? Like
yeah,
you feel like you're in the world they're in, and the world of drug taking, and very kind of evocative, and makes you kind of think about what it looks like. And of course, the movie did the same thing. So yeah, I'm with you on that. It actually, now that you say it, screams out to kind of go, this is made for comic books, basically, isn't it?
yeah. Thankfully, it's not like some of the other stuff that we've seen that gets redone from films and things, where the comics try to make them look like the guys from the film. So Hunter S does not look like Johnny Depp. Yeah, it's
Good.
not stylized into from the film. But yeah, no, this is a banger. I read it from Prime, so if you have Prime and Prime Reading, it is on there, or it was on there when I read it anyway,
Well,
on the freebies.
I put it down there about Twitter, and it says about following us at Popcult Prod. But we actually have one for this, one for the stash as well, don't we? And I
Yeah,
must admit, we kind of leave a lot of the talking about certain, if it's stuff that's piqued my interest, to the show to do on Reading Corner, because I remember seeing you tweet out about it, because we're both doing kind of a reading challenge, aren't we? That we picked up on Twitter to kind of read X amount of comic books in a year, even though we joined late in the year to it. And this was one where I just thought, oh, I wonder if this is good, because like any adaptation, you do run the risk, don't you, of people going, I really love this story and I want to do it justice in this format, or going, we've got a license, people are going to buy this anyway, let's stick man draw this and just chuck it out and hope that we sell some copies.
But yeah, no, I very much enjoyed it, and definitely one for everyone. I think you should give it a check out. It's fairly short. It's only probably about 150, 200 pages. So it's not massive. I bashed through it on a bank holiday Monday at work. So
whilst working, obviously.
Yeah, there's a bank holiday Monday. So there's one call every so often.
if anyone from the workplace is watching.
Another one that I cracked through was in preparation for the film that has recently come out for the Goddess of Thunder. So the debut of Jane as the Mighty Thor. Read the first collection, so the first 6 issues. Well, no, first 5 issues. It's only a 5-issue run.
Yeah, I think they do the first story is 5, don't they? I think, yeah.
What they do in this is so much better than what they did in the film for her.
Well, spoilers, in a future episode we'll be talking about Thor: Love and Thunder, and I do think that this will come up, and I'm really glad you've read this. I mean, I read this kind of roughly around when it was coming out. Like, I was probably doing it in trade, so I was probably sort of 5-6 months behind, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic, and again, when I heard that they were doing Thor: Love and Thunder, and there was talk of you would have Lady Thor, though, again, spoilers for what we'll do in the talk about the movie, like the kind of I'm not a Lady Thor element, and I was just like, director I love, storyline I love, bang, this is going to be great, isn't it? But we'll get to more on that when we get to our Thor: Love and Thunder episode.
So I'm touching on this one because I think we will definitely bring it up more in that one, but I did just want to get it off the list. And the last one is the first 2 issues of Do a Powerbomb, which is a wrestling comic book coming out on Image.
I feel quite rubbish for this as well, because someone had said about it on Twitter, and I was like, wow. And I think I'd said to you about it, and I said, I'm putting that on my list, and I've probably put it on a list in my brain somewhere, but I didn't actually pick it up. But I'm glad you have, so that you can tell me whether it's good or not, and whether I should pick up the trade when it comes out. But I haven't actually read it, but it's comics and wrestling, so I kind of want it. But yeah, once I missed that first issue, I thought, trade for me then, I think.
Yeah, no, it is beautiful artwork. I'm going to give you 2 seconds to got it down the side. Just fill for a second while I just grab it so I can get the right stuff.
Nice prop work and all that sort of jazz as well. And then we've said this before, like, and you've seen, like, sometimes we'll show our copies, but of course a lot of the time I'm reading digital now, so you just see me blank iPad screen, which would be very boring for everyone. Having said that, depending on when this comes out, I've been having some issues with me DC Universe Infinite app, which is a real shame. So I was just about to hit up a few runs on DC that I'd listed of going kind of there next up in the loop. But I think the age of my iPad is starting to show. But DC do promise me on email that my Infinite app will work again soon. They're aware of the problem. So I presume it's not just me. Other people are having it. But we'll have that back up and running soon. But yes, less props for me because, you'd just be seeing my iPad screen over and over again, which is pretty grubby as well. But.
Daniel Warren Johnson with Do a Powerbomb kept in their nice little wrappers because that's how I roll. First 2 issues, very, very good. How they've drawn the wrestling is beautiful. He says in the back of the first issue, how he got into wrestling was just had a kid and was watching New Japan World.
Wowzers.
So has a very Japanese feel is set in Japan.
Well, when you hear as a kid got into wrestling, your brain kind of automatically goes to it's going to be WWE or potentially what age you are, maybe WCW at the time and things like that. You don't expect to hear a lot of people, unless they lived in Japan, for their transition into it being Japanese wrestling.
Oh no,
Good on him.
he wasn't. Wasn't a fan as a kid. He has had a child, and in nighttime feeds found New Japan, and then
that's
found
even
New Japan
better, isn't it? I never wanted kids, but all of a sudden I'm thinking, yeah, maybe I've made a mistake. Get to watch wrestling, get to watch Japanese wrestling all night while while it cries. I don't know whether to have a boy or a girl, so we'll go with it.
And it's not to go too far in it because it's only been 2 issues. It's only a 7-issue run though. The main character's mum was a huge wrestling star, dies in the ring. The daughter then takes over the mantle and the name of the wrestler in a very luchador style, passing down to the mask style thing, but doesn't have a mask. And makes a deal with a necromancer
to nice.
bring back her mum if she wrestles in a tag team tournament. And her tag partner was the guy who was in the ring when her mum died, who botched the top rope powerbomb.
So I mean, this series, as I say, almost had me at the term "do a powerbomb," and I really liked the art on the cover. Wasn't definitively sure at that point whether the cover artist was the same artist as who drew inside, but I mean, he does a lot, doesn't he? He does cover art and the writing. But that description of it, bang! I mean, like that sounds absolutely lunacy and enticing, all in equal measure.
Is this one of these of when we next see each other, you're stealing and want to have the full run?
Probably. Well, unless they do some sort of sexy collection. I know they'll do a trade, but God, like it would be great if it was, I don't know, like released so it looked like a ring or something like that in the collected edition or something. But yeah, I mean, like I will say, in my lifetime, I don't feel like we've had a plethora of wrestling and comics crossover as much as they should. I mean, I know there've been licensed ones along the way.
Don't you shit on those WCW?
No, but not enough. You would think that they would go very, very hand in hand. I mean, I assume that if you're into comics, wrestling would be something that you would also consider, and vice versa, because of the storytelling techniques and the things that it leans into. So yeah, I guess it's always surprised me that we don't get more wrestling comics and more ones that aren't based off of the licensed stuff. Like this is their own original characters, isn't it? The other thing I was going to say on this, and I've just had a look while you were talking about the creator, and I think at least the first 2 issues of this are available on DC Universe Infinite, but he's also writing and doing the cover art for the Jurassic League, which is the Justice League, but they're dinosaurs.
Yes, I did see a picture for that because it's in one of the Killing Time issues, and I was like, what the fuck is this?
Batsaw, Wonderdon, and Supersaw welcome a few new monstrous members in the form of, I won't go into this, but yeah, I'm now even more intrigued by this one because it sounds like he's got like a kind of real nice creative flair to what he's trying to do.
Yeah. So that's my reading corner. What have you been up to?
So mine, I'm just going to cover one. I've been reading a lot, but I'm trying to kind of pick out stuff that sort of really stood out to me, and maybe stuff that might pique your interest as well. And so, like this week, it's Ice Cream Man, which is an Image Comics, and it is quite long running now. But I read the first trade, which is actually you said about 5 issues. It's actually the first 4 issues, which is really weird. Like I don't know. I think there was a gap. I think when they made the first 4 issues. Then I think they had a break for sort of 5-6 months, and they come back, so they released it as a trade. But Ice Cream Man is a horror anthology. Now I'm going to say like horror anthology loosely because some of it leans very intently into horror tropes, others more just kind of the weird and absurd. And if I was going to describe it as anything in particular, I'd say it's very much like a redo of the Twilight Zone. So
Okay.
you can have all kind of manner of things going on. And the reason why it's called Ice Cream Man is there is an ice cream man. So in every story so far, there has been an ice cream truck and there is an ice cream man, and it is quite clear that he is interlinked to all of these stories that are going on. So he's kind of always at the scene, sometimes actually making the things happen, sometimes just being there in a kind of judgmental way, sometimes just overlooking it. And as we get to the end of the first trade, other characters come into it that might give an indication that they're there to either hunt the ice cream man, or they are maybe more powerful, maybe more evil than the ice cream man. So it's already filtering around. So you are getting that there is a wider story. But having said all that, every single one of them, I think, even if there isn't a wider story, you could just read them as a singular story. Now, I don't know whether some of the characters that they play with in here might come back in later stories. But yeah, every issue, singular story. And, you know, they're those great things that horror do. They have that kind of morality tale element to them, but the dark morality tale, the what goes wrong if you don't do the right thing. You know, there's one about maybe my favourite one of the first four is dealing with drug addiction, and you see the story of a couple who meet, fall in love, decide to experiment with drugs one night, but you see this after you've seen them in a scuzzy house. One of them is going through sort of detox, not intentionally, they've just run out of money and he's in a bad way. And she kind of goes on a crazy crime caper to try and get some drugs. And then she is offered the best hit you could ever have of your life, but she can give it to the person she loves who's suffering, or take it herself. And I won't kind of tell you what happens and what the choice is, but it's those sort of level of stories where, I mean, it really speaks to me. I love that sort of stuff. I love it when comics make you think afterwards. And you kind of, like I was finding after each issue, even though it was only 4, kind of going, I don't want to read another one just yet, because I want to kind of think about that story and then maybe pick it up again in an hour and a half's time and go on to the next one. But yeah, I really, really, really highly recommend it. As I say, it's an ongoing, it's still ongoing now, so there's plenty more to come. And as I say, really hints that there's a wider Ice Cream Man story, but I think it does continue with the anthologies, so you get your story and maybe a wider bit going on around it. But yeah, absolutely excellent.
Is that on the DC app? Then I take it if it's
it's one that I had bought through Comixology, or I say Comixology. It's not Comixology anymore, is it? It's Amazon.
Amazon.
Yeah, dirty Amazon. But strangely enough, I say that because I don't like the Comixology integration into Amazon now. It's horrible to try and find anything. It's horrible to search, especially it's horrible on new release day. But Amazon, if you're listening, still sponsor us. It's still fine. We'll take the money. I'd actually bought a load of it ages ago. Like, I think like during sales, I'd picked it up and gone, oh, I'll get to this at some point. And I kind of went, I'm trying to go Marvel DC Image, Marvel DC, non-Marvel DC, Marvel DC, DC, so that I never get too indoctrinated in one or find myself burnt out on one. And so when I got to my non-DC, I went, yep, give me that Ice Cream Man one. But I will be coming back for more. I'm not stopping at the first 4 issues. I think unless the quality really dips at any point, I'll be shocked if this isn't a series that I don't go fully to the end when it inevitably ends.
Yeah, so it's one of those. It sounds intriguing. It sounds the sort of thing that I'd probably like.
Yeah, kind of cool. I was going to say a cool art style as well. It's Martin Morazzo, and I've never seen him before. And again, it's one of those ones where the art really fits the story. It's got a gloomy. Everyone's kind of got a gloomy, dour look to them, and even the ones that don't have a gloomy, dour look, because the Ice Cream Man's often smiling, it comes across like a very sinister smile.
Yeah,
not Joker-esque sinister, but still a very sinister smile.
Wonderful. So yes, so that is one that I would definitely try and have a look for. See if I can find it on the cheap, because you know how skinflinty I am.
Well, I mean that's again what I berate Amazon and Comixology, because it's a first trade. digitally. Often you can get them quite cheap, and as we said, in stores often, or directly from Amazon. Often the first trade of anything is that sweet drug dealer will give that one to you a bargain price so that we can charge you full price for everything else once you're hooked. Yeah.
So we will go into why we are here for today and kill some time.
Yeah.
So this one, spoilers.
Yes.
We will be going into the whole of the run.
Yeah. We want to talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, if there is anything and things like that. And we're not going to kind of go through it and just go, haha, here's the ending at the beginning. But yeah, we want to talk about all the characters that are encompassed and everything in it. So we're not going to skip past story beats that would inevitably spoil the culmination of this. So go and give it a read if you haven't yet before you listen to the rest of this, or watch the rest of this, should I say.
Yes. So, where are we going to start this one? So we'll start with when it was announced and the excitement that you had for it.
I was like a giddy child, wasn't I? I do. Anytime Tom King, yeah. Anytime Tom King announces anything, I get really giddy, and especially if he ever announces anything that's Batman related, I kind of I lean straight into you, don't I, and go, "The Chris, there's a Tom King Batman thing, Chris."
Go on, we've got something else for. Go on, look more.
Yeah. Work harder, mule. You need to buy more comics.
So when I saw it was going to be a limited run as well, I was like, oh, like I can get behind this. Nice six issues.
Yeah,
it's going to be a definitive story. It's going to have everything in it. And I'd read a few of the. It's not New 52. It's the one after New 52. Is it Reborn?
Yeah. Oh, Rebirth. DC
Rebirth. Yeah. So I read a few of his early Batmans in that, and I was like, I like his style. I like what he does with it. It's very, very clever. So I was like, yeah, I'm in. With the first issue, very quickly, I was super intrigued because of the way that it's told with time stamping everything.
Yep.
And I was just like, this is as soon as I saw that, like the first few pages, and you see that the timeline flips back and forth through that period of the day that they're in, especially in the first one, because it's all in the first day sort of thing. But I was like, this is going to be really important, and it reminds me of like a Tarantino film.
Yes.
In that you get little bits, and you've got to pay attention to everything, and everything's there for a reason, even if it doesn't seem to make sense at the time, at that part of the story.
And you said, didn't you, like when it kind of flips around, and this is like across the whole series, but yes, as you say, very evident in issue 1. But it's very clear, isn't it? Like the top left-hand corner of pretty much every page says exactly when it's happening. Like it'll be 11:52 on a Thursday, and then like when you go to the next page, it quite clearly then goes 2 hours before that. So it's not trying to, I think, in any way be confusing with that, is it? I think it's being very upfront with that and going, and you get that feeling, and I will say, like, we'll stick to kind of that concept of when we first read issue 1 of me. I wasn't sure whether that would be the whole series. I didn't know whether this was just a mechanic they were using for that first issue because it was in a day. But yeah, I loved it. And you're spot on, what you say about like the Tarantino-esque element to it of going, if you told this story linear, I don't think it would be anywhere near as good. Part of the intrigue and the suspense and the mystery that comes from it is you're getting your nuggets of information about the story on every page, but in different parts of the timeline. But because you're getting in different parts of the timeline, then new wrinkles are introduced where you kind of go, ooh, and what's next? And what's next? They're very, very suspenseful in that regard. I think it really did. It was a real page turner for me. And yeah, that made that wait between issue 1 and reading the 6 particularly hard because I was like, oh, let's turn the page. But you know, I'm with you. I think it was a really good mechanic used really well. I was quite interested to see what you had to say about that though, because I did wonder. One of the things that, if we're being like uber honest about it, I loved that all the way through. But I do wonder whether others might not have resonated that so much, and by the end of 6 issues, might have been going, you know, that was clever in issue 1, but I'm a bit bored of the skipping now.
See, one thing I was going to bring up later, when we go in a bit more, is a bit of some of the feedback that I've read online.
Okay.
But we'll touch on it now because I can use this as a bit. Cause it's something else that runs through the whole series. Is the throwbacks to ancient times, so the ancient Greek throwbacks and things like that.
Yeah.
A load of people were kicking off, saying they were not, either didn't get why they needed to do that or why they were doing it, and it wasn't resonating with people.
Really? Blimey. I thought that's a bit that people would really buy into.
I was to say, I think that you have to have that because for what they, it's the what's in the case moment in Pulp Fiction.
Well, yeah, I'm glad we got there early because that's kind of what really made it for me. And I guess for anyone who has carried on despite our spoiler warnings, a large part of this story is people trying to get hold of an object, and you're spot on, isn't it? It's the case from Pulp Fiction moment. It's, and you know, used often throughout movies, like the MacGuffin, the thing that everyone is trying to get their hands on, but lots of writers go, you don't need to know what it is. You just need to know it's something, and everyone wants it. Whereas, here they flesh out what it is, don't they? And they flesh out why apparently it is important.
Yeah,
and I think that's a real key to the story. I think if you don't have that, you are. Oh, I hate to say it like this, but you're going for that cheap heat, aren't you? You're going, we're not going to give you anything about this. It is just what's in the case or what's in the box in this case. And I'm going, no, it's nice to actually, as the story goes, to find out more about what is in the case, why is it important, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, the first couple of issues. I mean, I wouldn't say they're great, but they don't make as much sense in those first few issues. But I mean, those at the end, when you get to, I think it's like the back end of issue 4, I think is when that you find out what is in the box and what it means, and then it all goes
Well, and the thing is, I don't think you go if you don't have those moments in issue 1, 2, and 3, do you? If it's just at the end of issue 4, they kind of go, this is what it is. Again, I think you would fall into that world of just going, well, that's bollocks, isn't it? And not necessarily it's bollocks, but you've just chucked that in. Like, that means nothing. But I think because you've got that mystery building, that intrigue building all the way through about what it is, and that, you know, like, I don't know, enticing in that way. That little bit of information, it makes, again, page turner, makes you want more. Makes you, well, certainly in my case, made me want more.
The other thing that I did love is in the first issue, yes, we see multiple villains all working together in their little massive caper to get into the bank vault. No fucking Joker.
Yeah.
See, you can do stories without using the Joker.
Well, and you know, like in Tom King's Batman run, and this again become more evident over it, but certainly even early doors with the introduction of Gotham and Gotham Girl. He likes to, well, certainly my interpretation of it is he likes to play in that world, and he likes to play with the characters, and a large part of that being making the villains interesting and giving them some screen time, not necessarily to the detriment of the main character. Although I have seen arguments in his main run of that, but I mean, I love that. But yes, I'm with you. I love the fact that this wasn't just another Joker story. He wasn't someone who come along and said, I'm going to tell my Batman story, and my Batman story is intrinsically linked with the Joker. No, he had a Batman story to tell that had multiple villains featured there. And I think, for me, even ones that had less screen time, it made me want to read more of them if I haven't already read more of them already, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, like very. We talked before, didn't we? We did where to start with Batman, and not to give too much away because we'll talk about it a bit more. But this would be something that I would hand to someone to say, "Here's a good starting point for Batman."
yeah,
I think it doesn't have the baggage of continuity. Yeah, and knowing a bit about the characters is handy, but that's all you really need to know. And I think there's enough in there to flesh out the main players where you go, oh yeah, I like all of these, or I dislike the ones I'm supposed to dislike, and I like the ones I'm supposed to like.
yeah. Loved the interplay with Penguin, Catwoman, and Riddler um, during the main part of the heist, and then we get our cliffhanger
Yeah,
at the end of the first issue is that Riddler and Catwoman fuck the Penguin. Um, Having Killer Croc there, even
yes,
if it was just really for the first issue, but great use of putting him in, and especially with how he's drawn, because he's drawn wearing a coat and stuff, and you just see the cracks on the floor as he walks in. Showed he's like massively heavy footed and things like that. And it's just like, yes.
you want to read or you want to see Killer Croc in another story after this, don't
Yeah.
you? Because he's made interesting enough that you kind of go, yeah, want to see this guy again, more please.
Yeah. So the first issue is a bank heist, a four-way thing. Selena's being a tennis coach, and then becomes
Yes.
Catwoman. You've got Riddler at one bank. You've got Killer Croc at another. Penguin thinking he's the mastermind of it all.
Yeah.
Only to get fucked.
There's a lot of that in this series, isn't there? Of kind of who's not even necessarily who is the villain, but whose story is it, and who's really got the upper hand. Because there are many moments in here, isn't it, where that upper hand changes. But that's your first key moment in issue one, isn't it? As you get towards the end, you go, these guys had arranged this heist, and for all intents and purposes, it seemed like they were a cog in a wheel, and part of that wheel was the Penguin. But you find out, no, they were using the Penguin to facilitate their plan and brutally beat up the Penguin. And I think that's something that I don't think we won't cover the art lots, because I think we will. But one of the things that end of issue one kind of taught me, after what had been a very pretty issue, I felt like it got brutal quickly, didn't it? Yeah. And you kind of went, okay, they're not afraid to have a dark tone in this. They're not afraid to go dark places in this series.
Yeah, it was that point where I was like, we're getting some violence, and is proper violence as well, which is always good.
For realsies violence.
Realsies violence.
Yeah.
So yeah, strangely for a Batman, the first issue doesn't have a great deal of Batman in it.
I said earlier, it's one of the criticisms that I have seen for Tom King's other work, not all of it, but parts of his Batman stories, that Batman sometimes feels like an ancillary character and it's more about everyone else. But sometimes he is. We know a lot about Batman, and he has a role to play in the story and in all of these stories, but we don't always get to see the rest, and we don't get to see why the rest. We don't get to see their motivations. We don't get to see what they're like when Batman isn't boshing them on the nose, and this series allowed for that. Well, whilst I don't, for me anyway, I don't think Batman was too far away. I think he was kind of, he played a purpose in the story.
See, for me, I think, especially even more so in the first issue than the others, you needed it to be about everyone else for what happens for the rest of it.
Yeah.
You need to know that there's this motivation, there's the double cross, there's playing off other people to get them further.
Yeah.
And do you know what? Yeah, this is a villains led story.
Yeah.
As a whole. And that is sometimes what you need. You can't just have in comes Bats, Bats beats them up.
Yeah.
Because they were doing a crime. Sometimes, like going back to another fucking Quentin Tarantino reference. Usual Suspects. Or not Usual Suspects, Reservoir Dogs. It's that seeing the interplay between the bad guys to get why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah. So they're not just generic villains C, are they?
No.
You see that they have that. I mean, like, first issue, you see that Killer Croc's motivation is to get an operation because his girlfriend wants now to do with him anymore. She even says, like, no, we can't do this. This is can't. I'm going to use a term weird. But I mean, effectively, she's getting across this is repulsive. But he's driven by that, wanting his life to be like it was. And you know, like it can be argued that it's a simplistic motivation, but I think it's a motivation that a lot of people will make bad decisions based off of. And yes, you know, like it just allows us. It's better than Killer Croc is robbing a bank. Why? Because he robs banks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would quite like to know if Tom had maybe been watching some Tarantino recently.
It does feel love lettery, doesn't it?
There are some very, very heavy Tarantino beats taken, which I think is one of the reasons why I really like this, because I love me a Tarantino film, and I always think they are very clever.
If you're going to write a story in the style of a movie maker, you're not going to go far wrong, are you? If you kind of lean into Tarantino's ways.
No.
Let's hope he didn't spit in the face of the artist, though, like Tarantino was known to do on the sets of movies.
Or do some weird shit with feet.
Yeah.
So going into the later episodes, we have the introduction of a character that I've never seen anywhere before, but fuck me, I want him in everything now because he's amazing.
Yep.
The Help.
Yeah. Same as. I mean, the first introduction we get, he drops off a bag of money, doesn't he, to Killer Croc's girlfriend.
Yeah.
But he looks quite generic in the doorway. And I must admit, when I saw that, I just kind of went, I wasn't expecting him massively to be back. I was just like, okay, you know, he might be in a fight later, but he's not going to play much of a role because he's just a generic penguin hood, was what I thought. I was wrong. And I'm 100% with you. I thought he was fantastic.
And again, my Tarantino references, he is the wolf, isn't he, from fucking Pulp Fiction. He is the Fix-It.
Well, and we said about how this, that's almost a show then, this comic reveals, I would say, almost every page, and it reveals a lot about the characters, the story, the twists, the turns. But because it does so much of this, it does allow you to take someone who you've never seen before, introduce him as Goon, almost like, and at a really nice pace. By the end of it, you go, wow, this guy is a major player, even potentially, or has been a major player. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if when he's used again or revisited, is that you don't start to see the stuff that he'd done in the past, because there's an amazing fight sequence, isn't there, with Batman, where every move that Bats does, the Help kind of blocks or evades it, but he's saying to Batman, oh, that is so-and-so's move, and you learn that from him. I had a fight with him 20 years ago and beat him, and that sort of thing. And he kind of, by action scene, but by the conversation, you just get this like really rich idea that there's more stories to tell about this character, either be it going forward or historical.
And did you, like me, think that he should be, if they did this as a feature, should be voiced by someone English?
I felt I didn't necessarily go English. I went someone old because he does look old, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But I was thinking, and probably it does lean into English because I was probably thinking, and of course they couldn't anymore. But some of our dudes like your Christopher Lee's of this world and people like that, I feel like that's the sort of voice that he would have.
Yeah, he's been there, he's done it, but still well spoken.
Yeah, and I mean, just to clarify, I mean, he is new. Like he was invented for this series but well, I presume Tom King and David Marquez probably collaborating to do the whole design. But yes, he is a new character. But even that, we said about how you don't need to know much about Batman. You don't need to know a lot about continuity because it gives you a lot about who the characters are. So we said fleshes out Killer Croc, only really has a prominent role in one issue, but you know who he is, you know what his motivations is. Catwoman, Riddler, Penguin, you all find out their motivations and bits about them the way the story does. But here's a brand new character. And by the end of it, as I say, I think he's compelling and he's really integrated into the Bat mythos.
Yeah.
But, isn't he? His tendrils are here, there, and everywhere in Batman lore.
Yeah, it's one of those. I would very much love to have his own series of just him through the years. Yeah. Fuck it, spoiler moment here. We'll go through the Help. So the Help, it was originally Ra's al Ghul's boy.
Yeah,
he was the one destined to take over from Ra's until Batman came along.
Yeah,
and became the heir. So we know that by that already that he's a fucking badass.
And it's great, isn't it? Because we get the fight between the two of them, and there's even a point where he talks about, you got that move from Ra's al Ghul, and he must have really liked you and stuff like that. But it's later on in the series that we get the cutscene where you see Bruce training under him, under Ra's, and Ra's and the Help on the hill watching them. So you actually do know that the Help has seen this before Bruce. And knows it. Yeah. And you just go, excellent. What an excellent way of delivering that, because you wouldn't have known that from the fight. And I think what a beautiful way, again, to keep the suspense. So when the twists come, you don't go, oh, that's bollocks, that come from nowhere. You go, oh, how clever that you didn't give that away an issue ago or 5 scenes ago. You actually let that come naturally, so that it had a lot more impact when it hits. And he stays with the story the whole way. He's there from bit part cameo right the way up to becoming an integral part of what happens in the story. And we said about kind of jumping forward a bit. I mean, to a large part, the whole series is the theft of an item, the sale of an item, the repeated not being able to sell the item because of shenanigans, but people chasing the item. So Bats, we talk about the role that the characters play. Bats here is, he's a good guy. He's trying to stop the bad guys, but he's actually trying to get this item back because this item was Bruce's. It was in Bruce's bank vault, so Bruce knows how important it is. So he's trying to get it back. The Help decides to stop being the Help, and he wants the item. The Penguin wants everyone dead because he took a shoe in, but he also wants the item. The United States government really want the item, and and yes, it's kind of a chase, isn't it? Like it's but different people are chasing different goals at different times. But ultimately, and we go back to the briefcase in Pulp Fiction, they've all got their eyes on this prize. Although you do kind of, and this is where it gets great, and we'll get to that, but I'm not quite ready to get to the end yet, that lots of people have an eye on a prize, but for different reasons. And, so you're getting this kind of, this chase. And say, like, we go into issue 2 and you start to find out a lot more about how Catwoman and Riddler come together in this endeavor, because they are working together for most of the series. But you get to see them in Arkham together, don't you? Where they're kind of after a foul job. Yeah, but he's making a plan while she's saying meow, 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 because she's established she hates going to Arkham because she hates being in there with the Jokers of this world and the Clay Faces of this world. And you see that they are a unit, and they've got this plan. And of course, you're finding this out after we know they kind of turned on the Penguin. But I think it's nice to flesh that out, to kind of go, this is why. And they are waiting for, and a very smart thing that this series does, we said it about The Help, is to keep that suspense up, the buyer.
Yeah.
So you get that kind of, who's the buyer? Who's the buyer? And there's just loads of bits like that interwoven in this story to keep you constantly going, what's in the box? Where Portro's head, 7 spoilers. And who's the buyer? And what's the Help's backstory? So there's loads of strands. You haven't just got one strand of intrigue here. You've got multiple strands of intrigue for you to latch onto.
Yeah, and again, very Tarantino-ish, that when they get there to the shack where they're meeting the buyer,
the love shack,
someone else turns up, and it all goes to shit.
Yeah.
Then the Help turns up, and the buyer turns up, and the buyer is dead.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, the Help don't mess around, does he? And it's great, isn't it? Because, the Riddler is the Riddler. I think Tom King and before him, Scott Snyder, they did a lot to really bring him back to prominence, didn't they? Because he had fallen into disrepair. He really was a very, very low-level villain. And I think they've done a lot to kind of show him in prominence, but never losing that Riddler-esque moment. So when the Riddler beats up the Penguin, and we don't see this at the time, we see this in a subsequent issue, he alternates his strikes between hard and soft so that he leaves a Morse code message to where they'll be on the body of the Penguin. And you just go, yeah, that is what my understanding of the Riddler, be it from the 60s TV show right the way up to today. Yes, he can't stop himself. He has to leave Riddle's places, doesn't he? That's part of his game, his story, etc., etc.
And it's one of those things of, even if you look at the new film, the Batman, even that Riddler, I think that Riddler takes a lot more of this sort of era of Riddler writing. Of it's not so much hoo hoo ha ha being silly.
Yeah.
It's very much more, he can't help himself. He has to do a riddle. There has to be the clue given if you're clever enough to find it.
And it's good, isn't it? Because you get a lot of conversations through this, because, as I say, Catwoman and Riddler are together. Sometimes in ease, waiting for a buyer. In less ease, in what's to come, as they flee after Riddler being shot and them having to get him medical assistance. But it allows a lot of time for them to talk. And Tom King clearly loves Catwoman. He's put a lot of focus on Catwoman. And I mean, for me, I like Catwoman as well, and I think she is great in this. But you get those conversations between them where she's just going, if you've put a bloody riddle to tell him where we are, I'm going to give you a shoe-in for that. Why do you do it? And I think, again, it's nice. You don't often see that. So when it's the hero and the villain, the hero kind of ends the day and everything's fine. Whereas when you have the villains talking about it, they can call each other out on their bullshit a bit more, can't they?
Yeah.
They can kind of go, you realise we always mess up because you can't stop yourself from doing this stupid thing that you always do. And I think it's good. I think it's the sort of thing that us as audience members might get frustrated with if the comic doesn't acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff is part of their mania, their character makeup or something. But yes, they'd be much more successful if they didn't have these absurdities to them. But then I guess if they didn't have these absurdities, they probably wouldn't be doing these crimes. So they'd probably be doing an office job somewhere. So,
obviously, I think one of my favourites of this is obviously when they're running away. Catwoman steals the Batmobile.
Yes, yes.
Gets halfway down the road and goes, I know that there's trackers in this. We need to get out of it. But Riddler was like having none of it and wants to just drive as fast as possible in the Batmobile. And it's just like the yin and yang of those two, with Catwoman being the sensible voice of reason. And then her chatting up the truck driver.
The truck driver, yeah.
To get the truck. Because the car.
Well, funny enough, for my first time ever in my life, just before I read that issue, the one where she chats up the truck driver, I finally downloaded Euro Truck Simulator 2, which I bought ages ago on Steam, and I'd been driving a truck around Europe for an hour or so beforehand, and I thought, well, I didn't realise that if you do that, you might also get to meet Catwoman, but it didn't happen in my game. I can tell you.
As you say, no Catwoman's in distress on the roads of Bavaria.
To be fair, I was, and you'll be proud of me, I was too busy listening to metal radio stations in my truck to notice anyone on the roadside. And trying to watch, I don't drive. Something I learned playing that game is, my God, it's really hard to. I'm often critical of my missus about how she won't follow what the sat-nav says. It's really hard to follow a sat-nav, isn't it? Because they're really boring. So you just stop looking at them, and then you realise you've missed your turning, and whacking a Yui in a lorry on a busy road, it's frowned upon.
Yeah, it's not doable.
No.
So we then go to we find out that the US government sent the buyer.
Yeah.
And we get corrupt FBI agents, the president, and being told that they're not going to get any more money to pay for it. They're going to have to do it another way. So they take over a diner, and so they're going to meet there and take all of the customers and patrons out and staff out and replace them all with FBI agents. Yet still,
well, we talk about suspense. So you kind of you get dropped into the diner scene, don't you? And this is where you find out that it's the US government, and you get introduced again to another new character, which I'm going to go with pronunciation Nuri Espinosa. Yeah. And I talk about how much I love The Help. I really love Nuri Espinosa as well, like a character I want to see more of. But you get introduced as, she's a foul-mouthed government agent, isn't she? And I say a foul-mouth because pretty much every other word is blocked out with your stars, your asterisks, and things like that to sort of stop it. But
were you putting it in?
Yes, I was.
As you believe they would have been.
Yeah, I mean, I think I put in more C words than probably Tom King wanted me to, but yeah, like I was. But she starts because the money that they were going to pay was in the buyer's hands, the fake buyer at this, which the Help had killed and took the money. So the Riddler is saying, well, I ain't giving you it because I haven't got the money. And there's just this great scene, isn't there, where Espinosa sort of slaps him and he goes, well, don't do that again. And she slaps him again. And he's like, you can't hit me one more time. And she does it again. And it's after that where you kind of get this, you find out that she can be as confident to do this to a villain in the DC world because, the whole diner is filled out by her agents. And, you kind of go, wow, like what's going to happen next? And then you find out that they'd twigged that they would do something like that. So Catwoman's been hiding there the whole time, and she just comes out and gives absolutely everyone a total shoo-in, doesn't she? Absolutely beats 10 bells of shite out of all of them.
It comes out of the counter underneath, out of the shelf underneath the counter, and batters the fuck out of them all. And Espinosa gets her fucking ass handed to her. Again, going back to a Tarantino moment, in the diner, every last motherfucking one of you. I was waiting for a stand on the table shout moment.
Weirdly enough, I didn't go there. I went True Romance, which he wrote, didn't he? And it's Christopher Walken and I can't remember the other actor, but like that kind of interaction in a diner where there's no good guys in this, but like where the good guy and the bad guy kind of have a really, really interesting conversation, and you kind of go, wow, this is fantastic. This is so well written and so snappy and so I say cool. I mean, that's the truth of it, isn't it? I mean, that's what Tarantino does so well, and I think what Tom King does brilliantly in here is the dialogue doesn't feel unnatural, but it has extra layers of everything they say is with a purpose and the sort of thing that you think about an hour afterwards when you go, oh shit, I wish I'd said that. That would have sounded brilliant.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Then we go a little bit further and we find that there's going to be a meeting in a park for them to do the drop.
The government agree to pay double, don't they?
Yeah,
they agree.
Double. Yeah. And this is where we get a lot of the help story, backstory, flushed out at this point. And him and Batman, strange bedfellows.
Well, the thing is, I mean, comics are full of this, aren't they? Over the years, you know, the unlikely partnerships. And as much as this is an unlikely partnership, I think the way that it happened, it didn't feel too unlikely because there was a logical reason, wasn't it? Like the help just says to Batman, "We both want this thing. If we work on it together,
one of us will have it.
Well, it's much more efficient than us fighting each other all the way along." So we'll just take everyone else out and then we'll fight for it. And I kind of went, yeah, I'm with you on that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I just love the help on the back of the bike without a helmet. I don't have a helmet for you.
Yeah.
And him just trying to, should we have a talk about this?
Yeah.
Let's discuss, how do we know Raz? How are you with Raz? It just wants to talk to him all the way. And you just sort of get that Batman's like, fuck's sake, will you just...
Yeah, it was almost, it was akin to him sort of saying, look, we don't need to talk, but the journey will go quicker if we do. And Batman just going, nope. Nope. We ain't having a chat, mate.
And I think it was those bits that were the moments that I was at so much, I love the help.
Yeah. And so like we are heading to the park and we know that... So the deal is that it'll only be the Riddler and Espinosa, but we know that the Riddler will have Catwoman there, like that's established on it. We know that in a side scene is that rather than being given double the money, Espinosa's been given loads of FBI agents and a helicopter with a bomb in it to be able to drop on anyone who's there, and at the same time. The Penguin is moving forward his revenge plan. You know, he's very, very annoyed. And so he is hiring the goons of every villain that is in Gotham to go and primarily kill the Riddler and Catwoman. But he's the Penguin, so no doubt wanting to get his hands on the prize as well, because he still is a greedy little fella as well, so he wants a bit of that.
I think with Penguin, it's not the prize that he wants. He couldn't give a fuck about what's in the box. What he gives a fuck about is the payday.
Yes,
that he was meant to have.
Yeah.
So I think that's more his motivation. Is still the money at this point.
Yeah.
But he literally hires every goon.
Three busloads worth of goons, doesn't he?
Yeah. Tweedledum and Tweedledee's goons, Joker's goons.
Well, there's some really, and weirdly enough, I only read one little bit of a review by accident. Actually, I thought I'd opened up a review for another Batman series and had clicked on this, and I twigged pretty quickly. But it started with a bit of criticism of this part of the story, which said it focused far too much on these goons. Didn't really, it was just stretching the story out. But no, I thought there were some great moments in this, as you say, like the Tweedledee and Tweedledum one, especially where, like, our text box in it, which had been talking about this FBI agent killed this person, or this goon took out 5 people before being taken out. And there's just that lovely one where Tweedledee and Tweedledum were really, really happy afterwards when they found out that their goons were represented at the fight, and you just go, "What a lovely moment!"
Yeah, this bit is, if I was to say the one reason I wouldn't let Will read this, I think it's this issue is the point that I'm like, maybe not just yet, because we get a fucking massacre.
Yes. Yeah.
There are goons and FBI agents dying left, right, and center, and some of these panels, not in overly grotesque ways, but are
They don't shy away from the
violent.
violence, do they? Yeah,
No,
they don't shy away from it. But they, yeah, as you said, they don't feel gratuitous, do they? But they are
no,
kind of going, people died, and we're going to show you some people dying.
and how they died. Yeah,
Little cheeky Mad Hatter reference in there for you as well.
yes,
Yeah,
I did see that. With his hat pushed down across
yeah,
his head, so he couldn't see, and just
yeah, and
didn't
got
get
shot
involved.
through the hat and his head. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, this one very much hits a lot on the time moments,
yes.
and I think it really, really helps this bit because it just shows that this level of carnage happens
Well,
in
you
the
said
space of
something.
about 20 minutes.
You said something earlier by mistake, but I'm glad you said it because this for me felt like The Usual Suspects.
Yeah.
Because the start of Usual Suspects, you see the carnage that had happened, and then through the story, you piece together how the carnage happened. And okay, it's smaller because it's contained within a part of this issue, a large part of this issue. But you know, you start off going, and they had actually mentioned it at one other point earlier in the series, but they go, look at this scene of carnage. And then throughout the issue, you see how that carnage happened. And I really like that as a storytelling mechanic. And I thought it was done really nicely and neatly for this.
Yeah, and this was just fun.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't say that with the amount of death that happened, but yeah, no, it was.
Sometimes that's the truth, isn't it? It is just fun. You know, it's told in such a way that it's enjoyable. And yes, should we be saying watching people die is enjoyable? Yeah, possibly not. But it just is. It's done, and again, it's for me. It is done in a very well done way. We talk about this with action movies and things like that. Every way of telling a story has probably been done at this point, or someone may invent something new, but everything has. And we say this borrows from other sources. You know, I can't say that everything in this is original, but sometimes those jigsaw pieces are put together so well that you kind of go, the whole picture was great, and that's what I felt they did here. Because in another universe, this is told linear, and we don't get those character moments for that. We don't get the light relief during the violence of things like the Tweedledum Tweedledee moment, and I think it loses all the power that it has to get to the next part of the story. And again, everything in this show, I almost said show again, this series is about turn that page because you want to know what's coming next. You want to know what's coming next. And in theory, this would be the end, wouldn't it? Because in theory, this is the battle. This is the scene that happens at the end of movies where the good guys and the bad guys fight. And in this, you know, the expectation would be the good guys and the bad guys fight. Batman wins by some way. Batman gets the thing. Everything is great. That doesn't happen here. And it's not that it's so subverted that the villains win. It's just this is, albeit towards the end of the story, not the end of the story. This is another chapter, and then we go on to the next thing.
Yeah, and the thing again with this, again we've said it all the way through with how it's told. You see the fucking carnage in the fight at the beginning, and then you're then halfway through it, you're then took back to before the fight, and you see them loading them up on the buses. You see all of the FBI agents getting ready. You get Batman or get Riddler there. You get Espinosa then turning up, and when she turns up, and you then get the finale of the scrap when they're dropping the bomb, and
you get Catwoman turning on the Riddler, albeit I think kind of done in a way of whether she planned to turn on the whole time. She just got bloody sick of his stupid Riddler ways by that point, hadn't she? So she kicked him in the face, and she was like, "All right, ta-da!
Fuck this, I'm off."
Yeah,
it's just everything culminates in this, and it's just like fantastic issue. And then we see the prize fall out of its box,
Yeah.
roll down,
Roll down a small hill, I believe
Hill.
it was described
Yeah.
as. Yeah.
to a shadowy figure. And then in the final issue, we see who that shadowy figure is and who's been the mastermind of everything. The Kaiser
Yeah.
Soze,
Yes.
if you will. The Clock King.
Do you know what? I felt really stupid when it was the Clock King. I think I'd convinced myself all the way through that it was going to be Raj Al Ghul. And partly, I think, because I was supposed to be duped, although probably wasn't supposed to be that stupid, because we had that littered in there. You know, he was linked with the Help. He's the person who had given Bruce this.
Yeah.
And it almost, I kept kind of telling myself, this is him coming back to get his thing back because, you know, like Bruce is disappointed in Bruce isn't the heir, etc., etc., etc. And then when you get that reveal of the Clock King, I kind of, my feelings were mixed between two things. Feeling stupid and going, all the time stuff makes so much sense now. And I'd loved the mechanic anyway. And then I went, brilliant. Like, not only did I enjoy it going through, but now I can see why time was such a big thing through this, why it wasn't being told in a linear fashion.
Yeah.
And who the voiceover had been the whole time and linking that to time, is perfect for the character who, as you say, is the mastermind.
Yeah, as I said, with this final issue, it just everything. It's like you then see it as this guy's we've been watching him watch this.
Yes, yeah, and sometimes like beautifully done. It shows you he was in the room, but you didn't see him because you were seeing what he saw. Like sometimes when Catwoman and Riddler were having a conversation earlier in the series, you were seeing that through his eyes, but he was right there in the room with them while that was going on.
And the perfect reveal issue, because as you say, everything is then just like, and this is why this has happened, and I was in control of all of this, and just fucking stunningly done as a reveal issue.
And you know, I'll say it now. I think even if that didn't happen, I'd have loved this. I think it's great. And regardless who it had been, or even if that had culminated in that battle and Batman had did Batman things and won the day, I think I'd have loved this as a 5-issue series even without that. This is what pushes it over the edge for me from going, this is not just a really good one. I love it. And yes, it's this. It's this that kind of really hammers that home.
Yeah, it is just everything was always going to happen because the Clock King had deemed it so, because he controls he's the puppet master of all of this.
And you know, he even talks about it, doesn't he, of kind of going, the boredom that comes with knowing the steps of everything that's going to happen. So you kind of have to get involved in something really, really intricate to at least drive some enjoyment from it. The mundanity of knowing, I mean, you know, it's been touched on in a lot of stories, but like characters who know the future, how do you carry on when you know everything that's going to happen? Everything becomes boring at that point.
Yeah, but yeah, I love this. This is the point where we truly get to know that it's the eye of the god, the Greek god, and who holds the eye shall hold the earth.
Yeah.
And it's just all that to get this little marble eye, and then you find out that even in the end, the Clock King just gives it away because it ends up being given to
an air stewardess, doesn't it? Yeah.
As they just like, fuck it, I've done all the hard work, the heavy lifting, had my fun. Yeah.
See, and you know, like we talk about, I'm going to jump back to Killing Joke, where we talked about one of the things that is really interesting to talk to other people about who love the Killing Joke about what happens at the end, because you've got that kind of you tell your own story there. But this, I thought, did that sort of concept, but with that eye, because it's either a trinket that does nothing or something that does something. And I think that comes down to you as a reader and how you interpret it. Now, for me, it's a trinket that does nothing. But people have become obsessed over the time that it does something, and you actually give it its power by the fighting obsession. And for me, like, Clock King kind of goes, well, like, this is nothing. It's effectively a marble. But this is how I'm going to kind of drive my narrative forward and kind of, I don't know, like, again, not get lost in the mundanity of knowing how to do anything. But once I've achieved it, I don't want it because it's nothing. It's just something that, like,
the thrill.
Well, and then with him, I took it as it is a trinket that lesser men will fight over, and almost him asserting his dominance of going, I can take that and show that I can get it, but also I can show I don't even want it. But by the flip side, if it is something of power, you can look at it the other way and kind of go, he stripped that away from all of these people. Like, that was part of his goal, was to go, I will take this away from everyone ultimately, and I will put it, I won't hide it in a box, I won't put it in a bank, and we'll come back to putting it in a bank in a minute. I won't put it in a bank. I will just let it go random. I will let it go out there into the world, and it will fall where it falls, and it will lose all of its power because the person who has it doesn't know that it has power at that point. But I lent into it is the briefcase from Pulp Fiction. Going back to that, of going, it is nothing. It does nothing. It means nothing, because ultimately it is nothing. But it doesn't have to be something. People just have to believe that it's something, and people have to be willing. Yeah, people will have to be willing to pay all the money in the world for it, or kill, backstab, all of the things that we see in this, just to get their hands on this thing that may be something.
And then again, another one with a Killing Joke throw in is at the end. Obviously, Clock King breaks his timepiece.
Yeah.
Throws it down. Batman's there. You see him hit him, and then that's it. Because we then go to Catwoman and Riddler back in Arkham again.
Yes, yeah. And like that bit where I said, like, for me, where I guess the narrative leans to of it being nothing, and partially it's potentially because of that, them two back in Arkham, because he does the riddles, doesn't he? And the answer to everything is nothing. Now that doesn't mean definitively it is nothing, but I think that's where my mind was going. I think that's where my sensibilities lead it, and I don't know whether I should feel proud that me and the Riddler end up on the same page, because obviously he ends up in a criminal insane asylum. But yes, like, I like that. I like the fact that that the characters themselves kind of realise we did a lot for nothing, regardless whether it had power or not. And regardless, they didn't get the money. They ended up in the same place. So they did a lot of stuff to ultimately get nowhere.
Exactly. So I can tell already, but I will ask the question. Sed, what do you think of it overall?
Didn't like it. I really liked it. We have, and I'll say this on here so that you can't back out of it, but we read The Vision, didn't we? And we talked about that. We had a singular show on it, and obviously we've done a singular show on this. And there is other Tom King stuff out there. I've read a chunk of it, but quite happy to kind of reread it. And I think we will probably do some of the Maxi series, and we'll do sort of specials like this. I would say that this feels very different to me than most of the Tom King I've read outside of Batman. Like, it has a very different flavour to me than Vision. It has a very different flavour than things like Strange Adventures. And there was a part of me that wondered whether I'd become so indoctrinated in his Maxi series, which are really, really outside canon, generally, certainly the DC stuff. It's normally published under Black Label, and he gets to play with those characters but do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
This didn't. I mean, it's set. It's a younger Bruce, isn't it? Like this is set. It isn't like year one, but it's not like a million years away from that. It's a younger Bruce, so it doesn't have to fit current continuity, but it doesn't feel like it broke any continuity. It felt like it lent onto continuity, and after having so many singular stories that felt like they could never be integrated into the wider universe, to see him do this, I loved it. I loved him playing with the toys a bit more in the toy box, and it really stood out for me for that reason. But yeah, big fan. Yourself?
I fucking loved this. This was awesome. He is, as I said earlier, quickly climbing up my writer pantheon. You know, he's not there with the great wizard yet,
Yeah.
but he is getting close. But yeah, I fucking loved Vision. I fucking love this. What I've read of Rebirth is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's definitely one for me from the little bits that I've read of his. I will quite happily hit any mini run that he does that is a complete story in 6-7 issues, because his stories always, especially like if you look at Vision as well, they don't seem to just sort of go, oh, big beginning, big end, there in the middle. Shit matters.
Yeah.
Everything that is there for a reason.
Yeah.
And it all sort of flows so well, and you know, there are little bits here at the beginning that you'll need to call back on later, which you'll think, what the fuck are they there for? But they pay off. And yeah, what he does with characters is fucking great. And anyone that whinges on this one because of it's not Batman, fuck off. The best Batman story ever written has fuck all really to do with Batman. It's about the villain.
And funny enough, like, you know, we said about how much Batman is there in it, or like, is Batman the main driver of the narrative? But even if that's true and he isn't, like, he gets some great moments. You know, he's the peril for the villains, isn't it? I mean, often like we talk about, like, set your peril, and it will only be the hero will have the peril that they'll go against. But Batman is the peril for all of the villains, probably apart from the Help. The Help doesn't really see him as peril, but you get that element thrown in as well. So it's essential to drive the story forward, that the villains need someone chasing them. That is Batman. You get to see the interactions between him and the Help and make you want more. But I think the biggest thing for me, it's asked a couple of times in the series of, why did you put this really important thing in a bank? And I think you get that answer at the end. And I think it's a really brilliant Batman moment, because Bruce says, I didn't want it near me. If it is this all-powerful thing, I didn't want it, but I also wanted to know it was close enough that it wasn't in someone else's hands.
Yeah.
That says a lot about Batman, doesn't it? That Batman isn't perfect. You know, he has frailties, and a lot of those frailties will come from all of the things that make him the human being that he is. And some of that is that he can't let things go.
No.
You know, he is, like, if he could let things go, he probably would have been the Bat costume quite a few years ago. He wouldn't have done all that training to become like the avenger of his parents' deaths. And so, yes, as much as Batman doesn't have every panel in this, I think it's got a great Batman story to tell and a great character thing for Batman. So I think it's, for me, that feels like an unfair criticism if people are throwing that at it. But again, personal opinion, isn't it? But I think maybe, that sounds horrible, but I think maybe people have missed that point if they think that this hasn't got enough Batman or isn't a Batman story. I think it really is. but it tells about so many other things in that universe and so many other characters at the same time, which again makes it great. Makes it great. And the art is absolutely fantastic throughout. David Marquez, and I think I've actually read some stuff he's done before. He's done quite a bit of Marvel, or certainly seems to have done more Marvel. And some of the series that he's been involved with, I've certainly dabbled in and read. Like he did part of a run of Iron Man, did part of a run of All New X-Men. Quite often seemed to work with Brian Michael Bendis. He did Civil War 2. And I kind of remember him of going, yeah, he's good. Or like, he's obviously someone that they're trying to push because they're giving him big series. I do not remember ever having my socks knocked off by his art like this did. And it started from the beginning, and you said it really early doors in this, of how Killer Croc was drawn, the effort that's put into the panels, like you say, showing the cracks in the floor when he's covered up in it. And his Riddler looks great. His Catwoman looks great. His Batman looks great. The Hulk looks fantastic. The action scenes are great. The more darker, grittier, violent scenes are great. Draws a fantastic motorcycle as well, I thought. The art is, I would say, like up there as a series, like as an individual series. I'd say he's up there in kind of the pantheon for me of going, yeah, you knocked this out of the park, mate. That I wouldn't have wanted to see another artist on this, and I can't think of a panel where I was even a little bit off put by it. Every panel did its job and did its job well for me.
Yeah, if we can get these two together doing shit for as much as they want, yes, please.
Yeah, and I know we said this doesn't feature the Joker. There are a couple of Joker parts, isn't there? And as much as this didn't feature the Joker, I'd love to see the Joker drawn by this guy.
Yeah, we've seen this.
He draws a mean jokes. Well, there is a scene, isn't there, but with the Joker and Catwoman quite early on in the series, and I must admit, I did think at that point of going, oh, the Joker will be back, and maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. Was Joker one of the goons? So again, we talk about the narrative that comes along with it. In one of the panels, they talk about how a Joker goon killed 36 of them.
Yeah.
And there's, I mean, I guess it could have been a Joker, couldn't it? And I think open it up to kind of going, yeah, was it or wasn't it? But yeah, I'd love to see him back with Tom King at a certain point, and it to be a Joker story, because I think he draws a mean Joker.
Yeah, or just a whole Help series.
Yes, yeah. More, please. And we said earlier, I'm coming back for anything and everything that Tom King does. I will say there's one series that Tom King has done that I am not as much of a fan of, but I won't tell you what it is because we'll read that anyway. Because I'd be interested to do. But as a whole, everything I read I like, except for one, and that's a pretty damn good record. But even more so, if you tell me these two are working together again, I'm there with bells on. I'm probably ordering the hardcover before they've even put it up for pre-orders for whatever they do next.
So we do have a Tom King coming out this very month.
We do.
As the start of the One Bad Day run.
Yeah.
Inspired by the
Faith.
greatest story of all time. We are getting 8 different villains getting their own One Bad Day, and we're starting with Tom King doing the Riddler.
The Riddler Diddler. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? Really makes sense, like that the character that he's got, and God, like same as giddy as I was when they announced Batman Killing Time. I think I was even giddier when I saw the cover and heard the term Riddler One Bad Day Tom King. I was like, yep, sign me up.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely we'll be looking into that one once out. We might wait for the whole series if we're doing all of them, but so I know I've got an order in abstract for the whole run. So I definitely will be reading all of them.
I mean, there's some that are more appealing to me than others, and I think this is something you get in any event, isn't it? Like some characters are more compelling, some creative teams are more compelling. I can't see myself not reading one like Riddler One Bad Day and then going, I'll leave it there. I think that will be I'll get. And there are a couple of others that I'm really interested in. I'm really interested in the Catwoman one, for a large part due to the creative team. So yeah, I think I can't see that I won't do the whole of One Bad Day, and I'm sure. Oh, I was gonna say if we like it, we'll probably do a One Bad Day special, but. Oh, we'll probably do we'll probably do an episode rather than a special. Sorry, we'll probably do it even if we don't like it, because you've got so many different creative teams. I think there probably will be ones that we like more, we like less, and we'll cover that off in a future show.
We will. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this for anyone. Again, as you said earlier, a perfect in if you want where to start.
Yeah, if you don't own and never read much Batman and want to, and you want to kind of read something that's relatively recent, well, you ain't getting much more recent than this. And yes, this is a perfect jumping on spot. And, you know, as much as I profess my love for Tom King, I think this is probably a really good jumping on spot for Tom King as well. Because I think it is in that more comfort zone of other superhero comics. Whereas I think maybe if you jumped in at Strange Adventures, you might go, oh, this isn't what I was expecting. But this is probably a nice gateway to his ways of telling stories. And then, of course, there are lots of other stories that you can then go and get your grubby little mix on that might, again, use other techniques and other ways to do it and tackle other subject matters. You know, he's often a subject matter man. He will go, this is the story I want to tell about, and I will use superheroes to tell that story. So one of his series particularly focuses on PTSD and the impacts of that, but he does it in a superhero world. So yeah, Tom King has a plethora of stuff. Go out and read it, because I'll be forcing Chris to read it all, and we'll be coming back for other Tom King shows.
Yes. So get on it, do it, and
do
then
it.
when you've done it, tell us about it down there.
Yeah.
Or as you can see on the little ticker bar, which I'm going to have to kick you to fix and put both of the Twitters on the ticker bar.
I'll tell you what, I'll have that done by next episode. How about that?
There we go. So for multiple reasons, you can do that. So you can tell us about what you think about this as a run. Also, you can follow both of our reading challenges. I'm doing the one on the Comic Stash Pod Twitter page, and you're the one doing it on the Pop Culture one.
Yeah, and hopefully, like anyone who follows this show realizes that I like the sound of my own voice and talk a lot. Well, Jesus Christ, I'm on a platform that only gives me 170 characters, and every single thing I post up there, and I post me singles, don't I? Like I go like single issue everything, and I'm having to do heavy edits to get that down to 170 characters at every time, right?
Whereas I'm sort of like, right, issue, this is number X to
X. I read
it's
shit. It's done. I read it. It's done.
Because there's a difference between me and you on social media.
Yeah, I am a bit of a. I know, wasn't. I am now. Yeah, I really have become a social media whore based on all this. I mean, it's a nice little challenge, isn't it? And I say a challenge. I mean, like, if I don't read it, but it, you know, we read for the show, but also it's quite nice because, like I said earlier, I'll read things in trade bunches generally. Like if I read a first issue of something or it's part of a run, it's quite nice to kind of go, read this first issue, it's really good, blah, 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 whatever. And then you go, now I've read the second issue, still bloody good, bloody blah, 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 and things like that. And of course, you know, like it is a social media platform. So the hope is that other people who've read it come on and kind of go, yeah, it is good. Also, people say it's not good, but then they also can kind of go, oh, if you like this, you will like
this. Yeah.
I've picked up a few recommendations that way.
So I will say right now, my plan is I have to hit 100, which I'm on my way to. Anything over 100 is a definite bonus.
I'm still aiming for the 365 by the end of the year. Now, bearing in mind I started it I think it's about 4.5 months into the year, so I'd lost a third of the year. But through fits and starts and through reading trades, I'm not on pace yet. I've done about a third of what I should, with over half a year gone. But bearing in mind, I've done a third of what I should in about 2.5, maybe 3 months, and but during that time, we've said before, we've picked up Marvel Unlimited, we've picked up DC Universe Infinite, and I have like all the stuff that I've got on there, and I just hit runs. If anything, I've been slowed up a little bit in the last couple of weeks because of, and I mentioned it while you were off getting your issues, my issues with the DC Universe Infinite app. But when that comes back, I'm going to be pumping through them again. But the challenge is something to focus you on reading. I don't want to read just kind of do that. But I've been really lucky, and because I've been picking what I want to read, I haven't read anything that I haven't liked yet. It will happen though, won't it? Inevitably, it's going to happen.
Because we have got our Moby Dick to do before the end of the year.
You're suggesting that I won't like that. I think it's going to be great.
This is why this albatross is still here.
Yeah, well, I mean that albatross. That's the day that I found out that DC. I mean, maybe it's trying to tell me something, that DC Universe Infinite wasn't working for me, because I've been in my rotation of Marvel and then non-Marvel and DC, and I was like, and I wasn't going to tell you. I was going to surprise you by putting up there as my part of my reading challenge that the issues that I'd read. And yeah, the bug has been broken for 3 weeks, so I haven't been able to read any of them.
It's a sign.
It is a sign. It's a sign.
So, as always, follow, like, subscribe, ring bells, do all the Facebooky things. Watch us react to music, because people seem to like that, especially when we're reacting to Germans.
Yes, we're much more popular when we're reacting to Germans than any other form of music.
So there is those on the channel. Obviously, on the Facebook, get involved. There is the Facebook group where you can even lead the conversations on there, and set what you want to talk about. And
I'll even make you an expert if you do enough. I've been doing that recently. I like it.
But as always, said, it has been fun. It has been great to get back in the stash.
It has. And again, we said this on one of our music ones. We love speaking to each other so much, but we love doing this so much that we've picked yet again another one of the hottest days of the year to record this. So we're stuck in rooms with IT pumping out all the heat they can in the world, just because we wanted to talk about this. We wanted to talk about this as soon as possible. And I may well have updated the old ticker tape already to reflect both Twitter handles.
Ooh, get that boy.
Live fixing, getting the hang of it.
So until next time, we bid you adieu, and we'll be back with more stash.